Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany Benitez. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. Welcome to Women in Tech Trailblazers. I am Tiffany Benitez, your host today, and I am super excited about the guest I'm going to announce to you. He and I met, honestly, a while back, and we met in a complete different way, actually, really around women in tech. Him and his organization came all the way out from Dallas to support Women in Tech, the organization that we run, and so we kind of got to know each other then, but then it was really cool. Found out we both were doing podcasts, have really come together to kind of lock arms, which is really the topic today, is really if we're going to truly drive progress, we need to be able to lock arms. And so we're here today to talk to Tyler. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do his bio as I always do as I introduce these guests, but his is the epitome of his personality. It is so much fun. I'm going to read it and we're going to get to know Tyler, but we have a lot of fun set up today. So Tyler, who is Tyler? He is just a dude who grew up with a pride from hell as an Elmwood Raider. At the age of 4, he and his family moved from Southwest Texas to Rogers, Arkansas. Okay. Settling on the Montney side of Beaver. Okay. So not the part y'all are thinking, he says. That's funny. If you're from this area, you know. If you know, you know. His dad was the key to his life, every damn part of it, even if he didn't realize it at the time. But looking back, those days of winning by 60 were pretty awesome. His mom had just as much influence in his life, instilling in him the enthusiasm to wake up every day with a sense of purpose. And I can tell y'all he does that. Whether it was making 500 three-pointers or putting a smile on someone's face, she taught him the balance between whoop-ass and kindness. Balance. Strategy and the will to win ran deep in their family. They didn't make a ton of money in the 90s, but what mattered most was being the best at something, and that they were. His relentless effort came from Coach White, not just himself. Life was power one.
Power I right.
You say it. I don't even power I right. 44 wham on one. Okay, I'm guessing this is for our sports folks because Tiffany didn't get that. So say it again because I'm not the best at it.
It's just a slogan I live by, and all my dad's players loved this one play. It was power I right, 44 wham on one. You would kick out the tackle, double the linebacker, double the nose, and he would always say, "Let's see how big of boys they are."
I love that. And run it again. And he said that single play molded him, teaching him to run over obstacles, but never alone. Man, that's so applicable as grown-ups, and in this world. Always with the crew, with a tribe, with a fullback, with a flanker, and an offensive tackle, and a center who never got his name in the paper. Aw. Today, though, Tyler is the VP with at Cisco Ascent, a strategic account manager with Akotis, and a co-host of At Timeout with Leaders. But at the end of the day, he is still that fullback clearing the streets for his buddies to get six. Writing this brings him to tears because these words mean something. His dad raised a real wild hog, go Hogs, for our NWA folks, one who may never fully grasp the sensitivity of business because he's too focused on making a real impact in people's lives. And I think if you took anything away from the creativity of his bio, this is really his heart and how he feels. And I'm just super excited to have you here today, Tyler.
Oh, Tiffany, it's more than a pleasure. And I'm very excited to see what we get into here.
I know, it's exciting. Okay, so I think there's no secret at this point. I know I've talked to you about this show. I know maybe you've seen a few episodes, but the heart of what this is truly talking about all the stuff we never talk about. And a lot of it we really do focus in, and we're going to touch on a few things here today for us specifically with women. But I think authenticity is important for each and every one of us. And that's what we're really after, is a space to just be our whole authentic selves. And you're great at that. So what does authenticity mean to you?
Oh, it's kind of simple to me, really, because I think I've always had it in me, but of course, being yourself, but the older I'm getting, it's that purpose part that really correlates with being myself. It took me a while, Tiffany, to figure out something I was good at besides sports. and I had to like find the right people to help me. And I was like in the wrong wrong sector a lot of my life. I was like, do I just stink at like business? Like I was selling like a security tool and it didn't have much oomph to me. It was like, okay, you don't want it, on to the next call. But now I work with people. And that always made more sense to me. And I'll tell you what, when I was selling like the security SIM back in my day in SOC as a service, there was a staffing company literally right above me at the same building. And I kid you not, Tiffany, I would look up at the ceiling and I would just be like, man, that sounds like a lot more my style. I'm not even joking. With like the most blank white sheet, snow white sheet calendar of all time. And I prayed for a busy calendar to God. I was like, dude, I just want to be busy, man. I have all these other reps with connections. I don't know anybody. But I was still being me. I wasn't trying to change who I was. And I'm like the worst sales pitch dude of all time, Tiffany. If you make me do a sales pitch, it's like, are you really in sales, man? Like to me, it's just, being yourself. But it takes, to me, it took serving to find out who I was, which is kind of counterintuitive, I think. Like it took me helping and helping and helping others in different places of life. I can get into that maybe later, but like me helping someone with a struggle or a challenge, helping them kind of created who I was instead of me seeking who I was, is kind of how it happened for me, at least.
I love that because I think that there's something super powerful on shifting your eyes from yourself and your situation and your circumstances. And listen, we're all always trying to figure it out. Also, mostly, do we ever figure it out? Not really. I feel like it's this journey of like forever on the way, maybe never there, which is totally okay. But I think when you can shift your eyes from just what you have going on and what you need, I think that's where the true growth and maybe even understanding some of what that purpose is, because we're able to like identify like, how do we work with others? How do we enable them? Like, it's just, I don't know. We've been fed this like really crappy, like lie that it's all about you and it's you for you. And like, I it's just a bunch of shit that's been served to us. And I think we've just been eating it for a really long time. And it's time for us to like understand, like, this is not Cocoa Pebbles. And like, let's do it different.
Oh, Tiffany, I love it. Yeah, and I'll never forget the first time I heard it wasn't about me. It felt so good. I was in downtown Rogers coming out of like the old Cafe Santa Fe. I don't even know what restaurant it is because it's turned over like 50 times. But I remember walking the street going, oh, it's not about me. Like I was the happy. Like people were probably like, what is this dude on? I was just like walking down this, and I was just met with for lunch with a friend, and he kind of shared me that quote. And I was like, thank God it's not all about me, because I thought it was, dude. Like, I don't know. I think once that really penetrates your heart, it changes people, or it changed me, I know. And it just gives me a sense of relief to not be me all the time in a world that is like, it's a numbers game in this world, unfortunately. But I mean, I always tell people, if you can get over that hump of the bottom line and you can just be you can turn down business and you're still okay, is probably the coolest part of my life, but it took a little bit getting there.
Yeah. Okay. So I know I read your bio and it was like a lot of fun. And I know I talked about like some of your tech background and the roles you're currently in. I think one message that I consistently like try to drive forward in this space is that technology is not just like engineering, architecture, right? Like technology spans such a grand field that we don't even touch on. We only like silo ourselves mostly to engineering. Like if you go ask any random person, give me one word when I tell you tech, they're going to tell you engineer or coding. Okay. That's what they're going to say. And so I know that you've been able to play across multiple spaces and technology, and even on the recruiting side, right? Now that you're like into what you really love and getting to be with people, you are really getting to do tech in a different way. So talk to us a little bit about your journey of your career. I'm like, I know you talked about what you were doing previously on the security side, but just talk to us a little bit about that journey and how like really you've been able to drive to get to where you are.
Oh yeah. So like I mentioned, I was selling like security SIMs and SOC as a service, and it really didn't have much of a touch of a feel. So you could catch me in the SOC with the engineers, like looking at the dashboards. And my CEO was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, in my head, I was like, I'm bored as hell reaching out to people in my mind for this like box or this software to watch all these alerts go into one nucleus place. Like it just didn't fascinate me. So I had to come see what it looked like, and the engineers loved me in there. They called me Ted Lasso. They were like, "Oh, here's Lasso coming to check out the dashboards with 60 clients today." And like I said, like I had a staffing firm right above my head, and my buddy Andrew Supez worked at a competitor, and he kept reaching out to me like for 6 months. He's like, "Tyler," he's like, "you're like the mayor of Rochester, New York. Do you want to come over here?" And I was like, "No, man, I'm good. I got some deals going." And he was like, "How long do those deals take?" And I was like, "Forever." And he was like, "How does like a week or two sound?" So he got me over. And what I learned was awesome, Tiffany. Like it wasn't just the resume, it wasn't just the skill sets, is what I loved about it. Like every security manager I spoke with, they were like talking about curiosity in a candidate. And I was like, dude, no one puts curiosity on their resume. And even if they do, how do I know? So it was fun digging in to, say, let's just say a security engineer or a security analyst. If I heard that they were like coming up with strategy over the weekend when they went home because they were so infatuated and obsessed with it, I was like, hold on, stay right there. You're going to get a job. And they thought I was nuts, Tiffany. They were like, "Are you sure, dude?" I was like, "Yes, you're saying everything what most people don't say." And that was really my journey, really uncovering what the people's passions were. And even more so, like my hiring managers I worked for, or my clients, I really needed to know what they wanted in a team. And it was always curiosity, by the way, when it comes to security. But even in like project management, it's like what they wanted to know, what outside the box steps can people take instead of just sending an email to the team on a follow-up, and I had some really gnarly stories with people. They were like, "Dude, I drove to the supplier's parking lot and sat there," and I was like, "Whoa, you did what?" And they were like knocking on the supplier's door asking where the products were, and I was like, another instance of, "Hold on, Doug, you're going to get a job really soon, sir." So that's a little of my journey. I just fell in love with it, helping people out on both sides. There's nothing better when meeting someone who's been looking forever and you find them a job, and vice versa. When a hiring manager is looking for someone, they don't really have the budget for it to really pay out the, kaboo bucks out of the pocket. It makes my day. And there's something more to it than just the transaction. And my favorite part, Tiffany, is making relationships with my clients. It's like, I always say, if I feel like I'm sending a candidate to like my cool uncle, I'm a little nervous to send it, is a good spot for me to be in. And that's how I am most of the time.
I really love that, because I think, so I'm going to go in just a second and touch a little bit on the women piece of it. But I would say, just as a woman, there's been like a lot of like boxes that I don't really know a better way to say it, but there's a lot of like boxes that we are kind of forced into, and like, "Hey, do this, don't do this, you should do this. Like as a woman, make sure you don't do this too much." And so there's a lot of that happens. And so what I think we miss in trying to figure out which box we're supposed to be in and how we're supposed to say this and do this is kind of what you said. You said like, go to yourself and say the things that you typically, because listen, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening and right now that maybe are looking for a new role, or like, how do I really do this? And ladies, I'm talking to you. Like, your superpower is who you really are and what you really offer, because you bring something completely different to the table. Like you said, those leaders, and I know as a hiring manager, like I'm looking for those out of the box things like attention to detail, curiosity, drive, perseverance. Like, again, when we write out our resumes, we don't write all of those things on there. So it's really through that authentic conversation that we have with them that we really learn more about that. Like, I was laughing as you were talking about how you were interviewing people. There's attention to detail is a huge thing for me. So I don't care what your role is. Like, I don't care if it's in data. I don't care if it's in security, any of the roles I've played in. Attention to detail is huge for me. And so the question that I ask every single time, because I want to know, is I tell them to tell me how they make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And they're like, the look is always like, "What?" But the reality is, like, I need to know, like, did you get in your car, go to the store, go to the aisle, purchase the peanut butter, or did you just get out some bread, slap some peanut butter and jelly and ate it? It tells you a lot.
That is awesome. I love that, Tiffany. I might steal that from you. Yes. And another thing I love to do, Tiffany, is I think the more interesting you are outside of your skill sets is also a key. Like if I'm interviewing someone and they're into like Native American history and just the most abstract stuff of all time, and they have a passion for other things, is a healthy balance, I think, for people. And I always tell the kids, especially the kids that are just graduating, tell them what you love doing. So they can make this a conversation at shooting shotguns or whatever your passion is outside of your realm. Because I think sometimes we get too obsessed, or I used to get too obsessed with like basketball, for instance. Like I would make like over 500 threes a day, and I noticed that like I was getting almost worse sometimes. They call it the yips in sports, and I noticed that like the more I can expand my skill sets and other facets of life, almost makes me even better at what I'm really going for. And it makes you more interesting as well.
Because you built a relationship. Like, what do you talk about there when you leave that they remember you? Because again, it's probably, I'm going to have to like go back and read the time you built this one thing. Like, I'm not going to remember that, but I'm going to remember like the pieces of where we built conversation. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's really important. And I think as we talk about this locking arms, right? I think this is particularly important for us to talk about, knowing that a lot of our audience are women in tech. Okay. And, we've got allies, we've got everyone that listens in, but I do specifically want to, for a minute, go into like being a woman in tech and, working with women in tech. I think, again, we go back to like all the things we're fed, right? Is we fight really hard to get everywhere that we are. So as a woman, like regardless of what it is, not even just at work. And so I always use this analogy and I say that we almost become like baby autoimmune diseases, that we start fighting everything. And at that point, you don't even realize you're fighting the good. And what I mean by that is what we're here talking about today. It's about locking arms. It's about how do we really move forward? We've talked about like coming away from just self, but how do we really lock arms and move forward together? And so I'm honing into this from a female perspective because, again, I think this is going to take us maybe unlearning some of the things that we think we have to do for us to all progress together. But as we talk about locking arms, it's more about collaboration. We've talked about that. Less about self, more about us coming together. And that's really where the solidarity comes in. So what does locking arms and really driving change look like to you? Like, have you seen that happen? Has it transformed teams, organizations, communities you've been in? What does locking arms really look like for you? Before we jump back in, a quick thank you to Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas for being part of this journey. We cannot thank them enough. They continue to create space for women to grow, connect, and lead in tech. Let's get back to the conversation.
Locking arms. Oh man, that's an awesome one, Tiffany. Can I give you a few examples first? Because I've met some awesome women in technology, and I would say off the record, I am surprised sometimes when they do get the offer. I truly am. Even though they're awesome, like when I see that email come through and they want to make an offer, extend the offer to player A, which is a woman, and not B and C, which are dudes. I'm like, oh, okay. Like that. So it is a thing. I'm not making that up, and I know that because I feel that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like locking arms, like I love advocating, especially for women in tech. Like I can give one really cool example. I have a friend. She won awards at like Citibank and 7-Eleven for like customer experience in IT, Bank of America, a few other ones. And I was I don't know why, I just went on like a rampage for like 48 hours, like trying to get her in front of people. And they were like, well, she's overqualified. I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I had her change her title on her LinkedIn to award-winning customer experience in IT and call center for 7-Eleven and Citibank. I was like, and I'll never forget, I was sitting at a table at some random event, and I sit right next to the talent acquisition director for Caterpillar. And my friend was like, I submitted my resume to Caterpillar. So I sit down. This is like a day later, Tiffany. This was really damn cool. I sit down, and this guy's like, hey, my name's Jeff or whatever. And I'm like, and he told me what he did. I go, dude, can you look in your applicant tracking system on your phone? And he's like, yeah. I was like, will you look for this one lady? And he was like, and he was just blown out of his mind. He's like, this guy knows about this open role I have, and he's not even wanting any credit. I don't want any credit for this, right? I'm like, dude, look in your track. And he's like, oh, there she is. Ended up getting an interview, and she actually declined the offer. But what was awesome was Like he was like, holy smoke, she's been sitting in this ATS of mine for a week, whatever, a couple days or a week. And I don't know, I just like going to bat, especially for women, Tiffany, just because I do see it and I do feel it when I get the offer. There's something weird. I can't put my finger on it. But at the same time, like there's such a great balance when female and male connect in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you walk in, you don't want all of each, I don't think,
Right.
for sure, honestly. Yeah. But like there's such an elegant balance to a woman. I have a baby daughter now, so it's like even hits me even more. I like tear up sometimes. I'm like, oh gosh. But I see what y'all go through. And locking arms, there's no other way sometimes. Like my friend would never got an interview with that company that I probably shouldn't have mentioned. But, it's to me, that's what it took. Without you having some warriors running around for you, I don't know how else to do it. And honestly, half of my candidates, Tiffany, get interviews via text message to the manager. It's not email. It's not them applying online. It's like, hey, dude, here's the resume. And they're like, how's 2 p.m. on Wednesday sound? And I'm like, sounds good. But that's my responsibility, though, to make that happen. Because if I don't know my manager and I just say, I have a client named X, Y, and Z, that does no good for anyone, Tiffany.
Yeah. And the thing that I love is like you stepped out of your role. Like recruiting might be your role, but like you stepped out of your role as just a human being in that situation. And like a human being that like, hey, gender aside, I know this is incredible talent, right? And I think that's the problem. I mean, we've seen all the stats of like someone changing their name to a male name on it, and then them getting an interview, there's just a lot of different stats and data around that. And that's fine. But I think, again, when we talk about really driving change and our mission to bring more women into technology, it's going to mean facing resistance. Okay. Like your example is unfortunately not one sad story that we're hearing about that ended up really cool. But like, this is the norm for many of us. So it almost just becomes like, what it is, but it's still like really shitty and sad. But I think the more you're able to really stand up as a male and as an ally, so talking to our allies right here, like it's not even something like weird you have to do. Like if you know some incredible talent and roles and we all have different connections. Like for you just sat at a random table, but talking to people and building a relationship, you end up bringing the connections together. So, okay. So again, around the mission of us bringing more women into technology, knowing the resistance that's coming or that's here already, et cetera, do you think we can really all come together to support each other and really stay resilient and committed to drive I say this all the time, everyone truly having a seat forward?
Everyone truly. So I think you need a bandwagon behind you, Tiffany. I really think you do. Like for instance, I tell people to have your references ready. Let's do that before the final interview. Getting people to talk good about you besides you, I think is where the magic is, honestly, no matter male or female. But like for females, especially, because like I said, I get surprised when the female gets the offer sometimes. I really do. Understanding how powerful it is to build a team around you. I think people call it like a social board of directors or something, like some terminology I've heard about that lately. And I've always, by the way, I've always thought these terminologies were like just myths until it starts happening and you see it and you're like, oh, great, bandwidth is a real thing. I used to make fun of bandwidth, Tiffany. I was like, oh, bandwidth, everyone's got that.
Because of your pale calendar, remember?
Yeah, I know. I had nothing on my calendar. I was like, well, I don't know what y'all are so busy with. But driving a community, right? Like people always ask me what events to go to, for instance. A lot of women do. And my answer lately has been start your own. And it doesn't take much. Get a couple key players that are either women or dudes, whoever you can get behind you. Throw your own event. Throw your own. Stop paying $150 to go to some chamber event or whatever the case may be. Get there and there's like 3 decision makers on a panel and they're like in the backstage and then they zoom off and you're like, well, hell, then it's just like a bunch of me running around. I'm like, what am I doing here? But I think the event you came to the other day, Tiffany, really sparked something inside of me. Like if we can get people to just throw their, and they don't have to be big ones, like get them out all to coffee, start there. Start coffee with a few key players in your field. And I even tell kids, I have some kids graduating from Texas Tech in their supply chain management degrees. And they're like reaching out, they're like, dude, I can't get interviews. I'm like, okay. And I show them the filter on LinkedIn. I'm like, and a couple of them are women too. I'm like, you went to Texas Tech, right? They're like, yes. Supply chain, yes. So I show them how to filter Texas Tech alum, Dallas Fort Worth, supply chain managers. And then I have them write me the message. I'm like, what would you say to these managers? And it's like this AI drawn out thing, and it's so long. And I'm like, y'all, you're about to message someone who's busier than hell. So I write back, I'm like, guns up, whatever they say at Texas Tech, guns up, Marty. I just graduated. I don't know how to talk to get an interview with 1,800 applicants. And then I have these kids going, can you meet me for coffee in Flower Mound right next to your office? I have the kids detail. And dude, this kid the other day messaged me. He's got 5 coffees set up. He's 22 years old. Yeah. And same with the girl. The girl's got 2 or 3 set up. And she's like, Tyler, I don't even know what to say at this coffee. I'm like, even better. Be yourself. You're not supposed to know what to say. But I guarantee you showing this drive spark something in them, because how many new grads are reaching out to hiring managers going, dude, I don't know what to do. Can I meet you for coffee right next to your office in McKinney? Yeah. So the feedback's been amazing, but I think we're all looking to go somewhere that's already existing to form your team, to form your influence. But I don't think we understand how many people we already know that can help us out. And all you got to do is start something. I found out when me and Kevin started our podcast, it was so bad. Like we had like a script. We had like, it was just the worst, but it didn't matter. People rallied behind us. Yeah. So I guess my long, sorry about the long answer there, but I get a little excited about what I've learned. Yeah. Just start your own coffee meetings, go after it and tell me your failures. I like to celebrate failures, and I can probably tweak it a little bit, but what I can't tweak is nothing.
Yes. I really love that. So the event he's referring to, it was really cool. Like, they just literally reached out and invited a few folks to come in. And not only did a few folks come in, like, the room was like spilling over with people. Like, I stayed for a while and I was like, my social battery's drained, just because I'm like an extrovert until I'm like full, and then I'm like, okay, I need to go recharge a little bit. But y'all, it was incredible. And it wasn't like, okay, so they live in the Dallas, Fort Worth area. And so it wasn't just local people that came. Like, I was sitting beside 2 people that came from Kansas City, Missouri, and I heard another person talking about where they traveled. And I flew in for it. So he just got a group together. There was not a panel. There was not some massive formal agenda, but truthfully, people came because Tyler asked them to. And there's something very powerful about the brand that you create. And I truly believe, like, the biggest part of your brand and the thing that I'm most drawn to with you is you're just yourself. You don't give a shit, and you're just yourself. And so I think there's something really, really important to be said about finding out who you are. Stop trying to be all the things people tell you have to be. Show up as your true self. The other thing I really loved, as you were talking about those college graduates, and they're like, hey, this isn't part of your job. These things you're talking about is not as a recruiter. You're like, Tyler, as a human, like, let me show you LinkedIn and the filters. Let me tell you. And I think that it is all of our responsibility. I don't really care who you are or what your title is. This doesn't end if you become a CTO or a CIO or CEO, right? It doesn't end. We all have a responsibility to turn around and give back to what's coming next. And so there's just so much power in that. Like, over your life and career, have there been people that have been able to do that same thing for you? Like, has mentorship and sponsorship, obviously 2 different things, someone saying your name in the room when you're not in the room, right? And mentorship really being obviously walking that journey hand in hand with you. Have those helped you really, like, find your way and your purpose and even navigate some of your career?
Absolutely. There was one guy in mind that really, like, set the tone for me. Ooh, yeah, I'll never forget, Tiff. We were working in Bentonville, and I was like, what are you doing this afternoon? He was like, I'm going to help someone move to Chicago. And I was like, you're going to drive to Chicago? And he was like, yeah, man. And I was like, okay. I was like, are you going to tell anyone this? He's like, no, dude. I actually didn't say that then. So he, like, made some, like, I don't know, 16-hour, like, round trip or even more, walked in the office like a day later. And he comes in, and I'm like, dude, but are you going to tell everyone you just went on like a 20-hour round trip? He goes, I'll never forget. He said, Tyler, when you share your good deeds, the grace and spirit is gone. And I was like, oh, dude, like, this guy was walking around the office like he didn't even, he was just took a day off, and And that taught me a lot. Like I understand in the corporate world, you're supposed to toot your own horn a lot. I see it all the time, and it's just I can just smell it a mile away, Tiffany. And that guy, that one day, what it made me do is it made me hone in on my lane, like on me. Don't worry about the senior leadership teams. Don't worry about the executives because it doesn't really affect me. Like it really doesn't. And if it does affect me, I always say if I know too much about what's going on in that sector of the life, or even like on Netflix, Tiffany, if I like you, how I roll is like I'll find a show on Netflix once every 9 months, and I'll text my friends. I'll be like, guys, this show's awesome, and they're like, bro, it's been out for 2 years. I'm like, good, because if I know too much about just stuff that doesn't serve me, and that's just another example, like staying in my lane. When I do serve people, I don't tell people about it. And I've done some pretty wacky shit before to help people that I could get into on another time. But like, I don't know. I think just not letting the outside news affect you is where I like to be. Not really knowing what's going on above your head doesn't really matter. I've been really believing in a higher power. Like I feel like I have an extra power because for one, it's not about me. Thank God. And it just I walk to a different vibration. And I'll tell you what, when I meet someone else with the same vibration, I'm like, oh, what are you into? And it's usually some pretty gnarly shit. Like, it's usually some pretty awesome stuff, Tiffany.
Yeah.
And I'm not to, there's a long time in my life where I woke up every day, like in fear of like calling like security managers for sales. And I was like, this is just awful. And now I wake up with zero anxiety. My boss and my managers are like, dude, pump as much Tyler White and DFW as you want, man, or however you want, because you're doing it a lot different than anyone I've ever met. Now, I forgot what your question was, Tiffany, but I hope I covered something.
That was the question.
There.
I was just talking about how, mentorship and guidance, and you talked about that guy really changing your life with that statement. You've actually given really two other, another really cool one. So 2 overall. In the beginning, you talked about the guy that reminded you it's not about you, And then this guy, sharing back with you of, hey, I don't need to advertise what I do. Like I do what I do because it comes from my heart, and it changes things when you have to like talk about it. I think there is a funky line of how much do you, because there's also the like, hey, on the work side, that just because you do really good work won't always speak for itself. So how do you talk about that? But like, I still think there's like the fine lines and the boundaries of like, yeah, that might be some of your work, but like when you're supporting and serving others in the community, there's not a mass announcement that needs to come around it. So yeah, I don't know. We're coming up on the end of the episode, and this is like the part I hate every single time because the conversation is always so good. Like I feel like we're sitting at coffee, like we're at a virtual coffee, and that's what I always tell people when we get on here. Like this is not some stage thing. Like we're on here to have conversation, to talk about real stuff, to create space, and for different leaders to get to talk about, and leaders not being title, leaders being people that carry themselves as such in a community. That's how I identify leaders. I'm not out looking for every C-suite leader to be on here. I'm looking for people that I've seen emulate what I truly stand for and what I love. So number 1, thank you for being on. But number 2, I have one final question, and I always ask this to every single guest, but we always get a different answer, and I think it's super powerful. It's kind of 2-part. So the first part of it is, what legacy do you hope to leave as a leader? And then the second part of it is, if you could leave one piece of advice to our audience, what would it be?
Okay. Well, I think the legacy to me is I always tell myself, like, I'll be damned if I go down to the grave just as a sales guy or as a recruiter. I'll be damned. That is not what I want to be known for, even though there's a lot of respect in it. I get that part. But like, my legacy is going down as serving others, teaching others where I messed up in life a lot. And there's a big shining light on the other side of darkness. If you've been there, there's a massive light, and it does take some fun purpose and some fun success, I think, to really get you out of a dark hole. Mm-hmm. Like some people are in, their holes, and I will say it's not just attitude that gets you out of it. It's that feeling of whatever success feels like to you in your heart really changed my life. Like there was a time where I was like helping people get off like prescription drugs and stuff at my time. And I was like saving doctors from like crack houses and stuff. It was awesome. Like what I put in, but at the same time, I was still like, okay, I'm helping a lot of people do this, but I don't have that other part, which is feeling that drive, that fun success, waking up in the morning knowing you have a lot to look forward to. So that the legacy I want to leave is helping people do that. Because once that happened to me, it's like I want people to wake up and never want this life to end kind of feel. Like once and not every day's like that, but some days like I'll call my wife or my mom or someone, I'm like, I never want this to end. like that's the feeling you need or I want for everybody.
Yeah.
And to team up with people like that. And I know not everyone's like that, like, sometimes or even ever has been, but I can tell you it exists. And I never thought it exists. I never thought you could just work with people you like either, or have like a common bond with. So the legacy that I want to leave to people is just, to live a life where you don't want it to end.
Love that. Any advice? Like if you want people to truly like live that life and you could tell them one piece of advice to kind of get towards that, what would it be?
Well, so one's sort of about money and not all about money, but like not worrying about your bills, y'all, is a big part of like, like living like paycheck to paycheck. When you have like talent and you have drive and you're like, what am I doing wrong? Is like a living hell to me. And it was. So I think finding your niche on your passion, what you're good and what you're good at, and it doesn't have to be the most exciting thing. Like I'll never forget when I was like the number one recruiter in North America, I got to like in about a 2-year span. I was like, dude, I'm good at something. And I knew it. It was right above my freaking head. But like finding that is tough. It is difficult in this day and age because everything's changing so quick. And then you want to plant your flag somewhere too is another thing. And stay there if you do like it. Don't keep jumping around to med device sales, then to the recruiting, and then to software. And I can't meet a whole new tribe of people. So I guess my advice is to plant your flag wherever you like and to stay with something for a while.
You're gonna have good days and bad days, and there's gonna be some really bad days. And on the really bad days, you may be like, I want to jump ship. But I think it's important that you look holistically. Like there's been a lot of good days too, and like nothing comes without work and challenge. And I think you need to be able to remind yourself of those things. And also, listen, like you said, some days we just really can't remind ourselves of that. So like, how are you surrounding yourself with an incredible community of people that on the days you can't, they do, and they can, and they will, are really important. So thank you so much for your time. I know your schedule is like ridiculously crazy. So for spending some time with us here today, I'm super, super grateful. And to our listeners, we're super grateful for you. Thank you for continuing to tune in. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. You will, as usual, see Tyler's LinkedIn information come up at the end of the episode. I'm telling you, the energy you saw today was not a show. This is Tyler all the time. And I think it's why he's wildly successful. He's found what he loves, and he just pushes through, and he's not trying to be something that he's not. So let's take some notes there and look forward to seeing all of you on our next episode. You've been listening to the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for being here. If something resonated with you, please share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone you know that needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to catch what's next. We'll be back soon with more real stories and honest conversations. Until then, keep showing up and let's keep making space at the table.